So today's lesson 9, sunny day again. We've been playing around with TypeRacer. Rudia is definitely the class champion when it comes to accuracy. And let's see, who is our speed champion? I think Barak, you might be wearing the crown. 60. Yep, Barak, former piano player, is wearing the speed crown. Very nice. Well done. So I want to go over 2 assignments. You have a very small lab that's due tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And I'll explain why normally when we're in class, I actually have done it in class. So here's your lab. It's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match you up with a partner in the class. Okay. And I'm going to send you your partner's project proposal for assignment 2, part 1. Okay. And all you have to do on that document is put in your comments on these. So these 3 things I want you to address. Comment about what you liked about the project that your partner's planning on building. Add any suggestions of how you think it might be improved, as well as just any other comments or questions you have. Tried this for the first time last year. Students really liked it. They said they got really good feedback, and then they were also really interested to see their partner's end product after getting to see the plan. So to submit the lab, I just want you to submit a version of your partner's project plan with your comments on it. So you just need to submit that Word document by 5 o'clock tomorrow. And the reason why I want you to give, I can't give you a whole week to do this, is because you need your partner's feedback so you can start working on the project. I know some of you have already started working on it. But if I give you a whole week for this, it doesn't give you much time to think about the things that your partner is suggesting. Okay, now you don't have to do the things your partner suggests. It's just feedback and suggestions. So if you don't like the suggestions from your partner, that's okay. You don't have to implement them. Okay. So I will match everybody up during class today. I'm just going to kind of let Blackboard do it randomly. And then I will send out this afternoon after class, I'll send everybody their partners. Not that I recall, Justin. No, it's for assignment 2. I don't recall asking you to do that for the portfolios. So the other thing I'll ask you, when you submit tomorrow on Blackboard, you can also email the document to your partner. Because when you submit them on Blackboard, your partner doesn't have a copy, right? I have a copy, but your partner doesn't. So submit your feedback on Blackboard and also email the document to your partner tomorrow. And also please CC me on those emails so I know that your feedback has been exchanged. Because ultimately it's not for me, it's for the person you're working with. I also just want to look at and confirm sort of the final requirements around the tutorials, which will be taking place in weeks 12 and 13. So that's 3 and 4 weeks from now. So I've posted the instructions. The assignment is available for you on Blackboard now. It's under the group tutorials. So I'll just go over. No, we won't be able to because there's like 21 students in the class. So if you weren't here and didn't choose which topics interested you, then I put you in a group. So we had this discussion in class last week where we suggested a bunch of topics and people expressed people expressed what topics interested them. So I tried to make the groups based on what people said, but if you didn't participate in that activity, well, I've put you in a group and given you a topic. Right? So you can find the groups here. So we proposed 8 topics. We settled on 6 of them. So whichever cell is green beside your name, that's the topic that you're going to be working with. So some of the groups have 3 students and some of them have 4. I tried to give everybody as much as possible their first choice. And I think if you didn't get your first choice, you got your second choice for everyone who has attended class last week and expressed a preference. So nobody got their third choice or anything less than their second choice. As I said, if you weren't here and you didn't participate, well, I had to make the groups, so I've done them. So you can see the groups here. So 3 of the tutorials are going to be in week 12. 3 of them are going to be in week 13. And we can choose, we can randomly generate who's going to be in who's going to go in what order. So let's start over here. I think we'll work from the last column forward and we'll work from the bottom of the list alphabetically. We'll work from here. So search, I'm going to generate a random number between 1 and 6, and that will be the order you go in. Okay, so the search tutorial is going to be 3rd. So I've created the groups here. So the search group, which is Maggie, Maria, and Rachel, you guys will be 3rd. We decided we weren't going to do drag and drop. We did search. So unit testing, which is Camilo, Nadine, Gurjinder, and Justin S. Sorry, what was your topic? Was unit testing. So you guys will be group 5. Okay, so you'll be the middle presentation on our last class in week 13. Live chat is going to be Hung, Ivan, and So Young. You guys will be group 2. PayPal, which will be Kapil, Aditya, Jayasuriya, and Ravinder. You guys will be group 6, so you'll be the final presentation, final tutorial. And then we've got Gatsby and 2-factor authentication. So the group doing 2-factor authentication. Oops. You'll be 4th. So the group doing 2-factor is Barack, Justin B, and Nick. So you guys will be 4th. And that means the Gatsby group, Rebecca, Janelle, and Rudia, you guys will be 1st. Okay. So you can see your groups in the groups section on Blackboard. And the number indicates what order the tutorials are going to be conducted in. So let's look at what I'm expecting. So you're going to submit one completed sample application. So you'll submit the link to the GitHub repository. So for example, the Gatsby group, you're going to build a demo site with Gatsby and include the link. Any files or documentation you use during your tutorial, so if you have like slideshow or Prezi or something, you'll include that. And then a member contribution sheet, you're going to submit one as a group. I guess we can load that up. So it looks like this. You're going to agree as a group how much of the total mark is everyone in the group entitled to. And then each team member will get that percentage of your team's grade. So you're going to submit this together. Most of you are in the Project Studio class, so you're already familiar with this document. Wrong document. So you've either chosen or been assigned to one of the topics, and your group is going to create a simple lesson. Do not make it overly complicated. You're just giving us an introduction to your concept, whether it's Gatsby or PayPal or real-time chat. And you're going to walk us through creating a really simple application with your topic. If you think, and you have maximum 50 minutes for this, which it goes by fast, it's not a lot of time. So you don't have to get us to build something from scratch. If you want, you can even give us a starter project that has some of the setup done that we can then make some changes to. It's up to you. So probably best that one person in the group just shares their screen, but multiple people can use their audio and communicate to the class. And you should anticipate that, people will say, hold on a minute, I got stuck, or I have a question, I'm behind. Okay, so you'll want to allocate some time for that. So you're being marked basically on the research you did that shows you understand the technology you're going to teach us, your presentation, and everybody should be involved in some way. You're not just going to delegate and have one student do the whole thing. The sample exercise that we're going to work through along with you, and then your completed demonstration. So you might think about, how do you want to introduce your topic? What kind of sample exercise could you get us to do in a short time window? I mean, if your 50 minutes is the maximum, if your tutorial is less, that's fine. It's not a problem. It doesn't have to be a full 50 minutes. Do you need to give us like a starter project? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And you want to think about what problems or questions is the rest of the class likely to have as they follow along with you. And you're free to use any supporting materials, presentation slides, web pages, images, video, anything that you find will help you explain your concept to the class. So you're marked basically equally on these 4 categories. Your research that shows your understanding of the tool or technology, how you present it, the sample that you want us to do, that you're going to lead us through, and then your sort of final finished project that shows, okay, like here's the sample, we know how to actually build something with this technology. So you're getting to sort of become an expert in the tool that you chose, and it's a chance for you to do some learning from each other as well. Gives you a break from my voice, which you guys have gotten a lot of over the last 16 months. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks, Aditya. So you should be able to message your group through Blackboard, I believe. But if you need somebody's email address, let me know. So don't make it overly complex. Give us a simple task. Teach us what the technology is, how and why, how it works, why we use it, and give us a simple task just so we can do something with it. You don't have to get carried away and be too complex. Okay, so if you think about what you're trying to achieve, think of it this way. You're trying to teach the rest of the class enough that if they went on a job interview and got a question about that technology, they would know enough about it that they could answer a basic question about it and how it works. The goal is not to become experts on all of it in 50 minutes. It's to give you just a little taste of some additional ideas. All right. So today is our first of 3 Angular classes. So your lab's due tomorrow. So we're going to exchange feedback. We've confirmed and set up our schedule for the tutorials. So we're going to introduce an Angular and TypeScript, and today we're going to build a standalone Angular app. So we're not going to work with our Node and Express application. I think you may be able to send messages in the group section. Ravinder, if you go to groups, you may have the ability to contact your group. But let me know if you can't. So today we're going to build a standalone kind of a client-side app only. And then our last 2 classes, what we're going to do, we want to rebuild our project tracker site, but we're going to use Node and Express for the back end, and we're going to use Angular for the front end. So we're going to get rid of our EJS templating. We also want to rebuild it as a single page application. So users can create, read, update, and delete the project data on a single page with no page refresh. So we'll start that next week, but for this week, I know this says less than 11 slides. We want to just look at Angular. If I brought this to the screen where you could see it. Has anybody ever worked with Angular at all before? Do you know anything about it? Is there anybody who's got any experience working with this tool? Yes? Okay, Rudy, do you have any thoughts about Angular? Why you used it or whether you liked it or not? Yep, it is a component-based framework. Absolutely. Yep, it's well suited for building single page applications. So we'll get our feet wet with Angular this week, and then we'll start building a single page app or an SPA next week. So let's talk a bit about. So Angular actually is a Google product, and the idea was to be able to create dynamic front ends. So really commonly used in single page applications. And our idea here is it lets us show data in real time without needing a page refresh. So if the underlying data changes, our page automatically updates in real time with no interaction by the user. So we can use it both for web, we can also use it for mobile, letting us run a single code base. Now, Angular is a framework that's known as an opinionated framework. So Angular's powerful, but kind of like MVC framework, a lot of MVC frameworks like .NET Core, there's very specific rules. We have to do things in a certain way and structure our app in a certain way in order for kind of the power of Angular to be harnessed. It's maybe not quite as flexible as other front end. Well, Angular is a framework, but there's other front end libraries like React, which is a big competitor, and then there's Vue, which I know you guys are learning with Albert this semester. Yep, that's true. Aditya. Okay, so Angular's got a very kind of set structure that it wants us to follow. So if we go back, we had this slide right from about the mean stack in our very first slide deck of the semester. So we've really been doing this, but instead of Angular here, we've been using EJS as our templating engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace instead of handlebars, we're going to replace our handlebars next week. We want to replace the handlebars front end with Angular. So it does add more complexity and more structure to our app. So right now we've basically got kind of three layers, right? We've got Express on the back end, we have the node server in the middle, and we have the handlebars view templates. So we kind of have three layers. And Rebecca, I think, as we were talking about in office hours the other day, once we add Angular to the front end, this is actually going to go from a 3-layer app to a 6-layer app, because the Angular piece isn't just one layer. There's actually 3 layers on Angular. And then I guess it's 4 because we have MongoDB in the back. So we're going to go from 4 layers to 6 once we get going with this. So there's a couple of different versions, and this is one thing you have to be careful of. If you're looking online for Angular resources, there was a major break, a major shift between versions 1 and 2. The original version was known as Angular JS. And if you see any tutorials or videos that refer to Angular JS, this is version 1. Version 2 was totally different. So you couldn't really move. If you had an Angular 1, you couldn't upgrade it to version 2. You basically had to rewrite it. So make sure any tutorials or online resources you use are for Angular and not Angular JS. So version 2 or higher is what we're going to be using. So here's kind of the magic of Angular. Angular supports what's called two-way data binding. So it means our pages are always looking for new data, as well as looking for changes in the UI, and it's trying to keep them in sync all the time. So visually, so we've got, let's say, some sort of template, and we have a view. So a view might be something like a text box, for example. A text box on a page, it may be bound to a field in our database. So the two-way data binding, it's constantly checking. If we make a change in the text box, it will update the underlying data model. But if the underlying data model changes, it automatically will update the text in our input without our page having to reload. So this is kind of the whole key to the dynamic nature of Angular, is this two-way data binding model. So here's kind of another view of it. So Rudia mentioned that Angular is component-based. So our component and our UI template, they're constantly syncing and being checked to make sure that they're in sync in terms of what the data they're holding. Now, Angular isn't a language. Angular still uses JavaScript, but it doesn't use the kind of JavaScript we've used before. Instead, it uses a version or a superset of JavaScript called Typescript that was actually created by Microsoft. So kind of odd to think Angular was created by Google. It actually uses a JavaScript version that Microsoft created. And it's called Typescript because it's basically a strongly typed version of JavaScript. So JavaScript is untyped or loosely typed, right? When we declare something as const or var or let, we don't have to declare what type of data it is. And we can then change it. We could say var x equals 1, and then on the next line we could say x equals ABC. So we could change the data types of JavaScript values. All our Angular code actually has to be written in TypeScript. So it's very similar to JavaScript, but it also includes this data typing. And it also supports object-oriented programming features. So the way that we'll write our Angular code, we'll write it and our files will have .ts extensions. So there'll be TypeScript, but the Angular compiler then, it converts, or what's called transpiles. We write the code in TypeScript, but the Angular compiler then generates plain JavaScript versions of that code. But we have to use TypeScript for actually coding, and Angular will generate the resulting JavaScript. So whenever we create a .ts file in Angular, we're automatically going to get a JS file with the same name. And some of the other reasons to use TypeScript is it also catches errors at coding and compile time. Normally, when you write code in JavaScript, if it fails, it doesn't fail, it fails in the browser console, whereas TypeScript gets compiled. So if we have coding errors, they get caught earlier. So all of our logic we write in TypeScript, and Angular will set up our structure for the project. Okay. And there's a quick introduction to TypeScript. So these slides are on Blackboard, so you can go and look at this, but we'll do some basics with TypeScript together. Okay, so we need to install a few things for this to work. So I'm going to open up a command prompt. Actually, you know what? I think I'll just open WebStorm and open up our project. We're not going to work with the project from last week. We're going to make a new one that we're going to have to install some packages so that we can use Angular. So I'm just going to load our project tracker. Another interesting thing about Angular. Here's the link to the home page. We'll go here. So we can go to angular.io. And interestingly, if I click on Get Started, this is fun. I realized this yesterday. They broke their documentation. I'm in Firefox, where I choose to be. Okay, they fixed this. It wasn't working in Firefox yesterday. So, prerequisites, you should be familiar with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Knowledge of TypeScript, helpful, but not required. That's okay, I'm going to help you with the TypeScript. You need Node. We're good there. We've got Node. You need NPM. We're good there. So it wants us to install the Angular CLI. So CLI stands for Command Line Interface. You use the CLI to create projects, generate application and library code, and perform a variety of development tasks like testing, bundling, and deployment. So Angular CLI is a scaffolding tool for creating Angular applications. So we're going to want to install the Angular CLI globally. So from this page, and I can put the link directly in the chat. So from the guide, let's copy npm install -g at Angular CLI. So let's copy that. And because we're installing it globally, you can just open your terminal here. Doesn't matter that I'm inside the project tracker. So paste that in. I'll also put it in the chat. And we want to install the Angular command line interface globally. It's kind of like the Express generator, but it's for Angular. And maybe just let me know in the chat if that install worked for you, if you're having a problem. I don't want to move forward until I see that most people were able to install the Angular CLI. Okay, thanks, Maggie. Great. Thank you, Justin. Thanks, Ivan. Great, Ravinder. Excellent, Aditya. Excellent, good. Okay, thanks, Radia. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, that's good, Maria. Good, Rebecca. So once we've done that install, we want to use the CLI scaffolding tool to make a new project. Now notice I'm inside my project tracker directory. I don't want to create the Angular application in here. I want to create it up one level inside my node folder. So I will run the command cd ... So this takes me back to my root node folder. So just run the command cd ... to go back up one directory. So if we kind of keep looking at sort of the quick setup, it tells us to install the CLI globally. We've done that. And then it says to create a new workspace with an initial starter app, we'll run the command ng for Angular. Sorry, Hung. No, say no to that. Always say no to sharing data with Google. If you said yes, it's okay. But if you're asking me, say no. So if we use ng new, and then we give our application a name, and this will scaffold a new application, and it will actually look like this. So again, outside of my project tracker, I'm now going to do ng new. What do we want to call this one? I'll call it Angular L9. So for lesson 9. You can name this one anything you like. So ng space new. I'll put it in the chat. Angular L9. It's going to ask if we want Angular routing. For today, it doesn't really matter, but I'll say yes. And then it asks which style sheet format. I just want plain CSS, so I can just hit enter to this. And then it runs much like the Express generator. It starts to scaffold an application. Do you want to enforce stricter type checking? You can say no to that, Rudia. Doesn't really matter for our purposes. And a few dependencies for Jasmine and Karma, which are for unit testing. That's fine. If you said yes, that's okay. I don't think I really need to worry about these errors. We're not using Karma and Jasmine. So if some of these dependencies aren't found, I don't think that's going to affect what we want to do. So we'll let it finish. And then much like the Express generator, once we generate the project, we're going to do cd Angular L9. We want to then change directories and go into our new project folder. And then if we run ng serve --open, this will compile the app, start the local web server, and open it in our default browser. And the default Angular port with the CLI is 4200. So I'm going to try these commands, but I'm going to obviously replace, I'm not using my app. We're going to use Angular L9. And I'll put the commands in the chat as well. So I'll do cd Angular L9. And then I'll try ng serve --open. So not only will it start the server, we'll take a look in just a second, Justin. Good question. Okay. Why did this fail? Okay. Fix this dependency conflict or retry the command with force. Janelle, ng, all the Angular commands start with ng. Unable to resolve. Okay, if you've got this error, so mine is not starting. I said yes to the Angular routing, and I selected CSS for the style sheet, just plain CSS. So Rachel, I said, yeah, Y for routing, and I just hit enter for the CSS. Does that help? Okay, great. Okay, so I have to, let's see. I will do an npm. If you're getting this error like I've got, I'll do npm I ---- force. See if that updates all my npm packages. That's okay, Justin. Don't worry about that. Yep. I'm going to see if this works for me. If it does, I'll put the command in the chat. I may have to regenerate this through my administrative command prompt. It might be a permissions error that I've got. That's all right. That's how we learn. So if you're able to run ng serve ---- open, the Angular site should load in your browser at localhost 4200. So Justin, I'll come back to your question in a minute. Once this is done, I'll close up the project tracker and open up our new project in WebStorm so we can look at the structure of it. We'll take a pause soon, but I'll see if I can resolve, if this is going to work for me. Okay, I'll try again, ng serve. Okay, so that seemed to fix it by forcing my npm. So if you got that error that I got, I did npm I ---- force. So it's using Webpack, which bundles things. So now we've got, it says Angular L9 app is running. And then we've got a bunch of links and buttons here. So if I want to add, let's say I want to add Angular material design, it actually gives me the code. So as you asked about ng, so all of the Angular commands will start with ng. Okay, so now this is our scaffolded application. So I'm just going to open it in my code editor so we can have a quick look at it. I'm going to click on File, Open, pardon me, and I'll open up my node directory where we created this. So here's my Angular L9. So it comes with a README file. It says run ng serve for a dev server and navigate to localhost 4200. App will automatically reload if you change the source. So Webpack does the same thing that NodeMon does, but it comes right baked into the Angular CLI. So if we change anything, our site will automatically reload. We can generate components, which we'll do. We can do unit testing, which we'll skip with Karma. So here's what it looks like. We've got this E2E folder. This is basically for testing. We're not really concerned. Our node modules, everyone knows what that is. So here's all the dependencies. It's huge. If we actually go and look in our Windows directory, if I use my Windows Explorer, my Angular project itself, it's big. It's almost 1/4 of a gig. Why? Largely, and this is one issue with the Angular CLI, like 90% of the size are the modules. And Angular has not come up with a good solution to compress these. So unfortunately, when we use the CLI, we get a lot of libraries and node modules we really don't need that ship with it. And then all the actual code is here. It's under the source. So we'll dissect some of these a bit more. But we've got our environments for production and for development, static assets, and then we've got our app. So most of the work we're going to do is inside of the app. And then a generic style sheet, homepage, favorite icon. And you can see we've got both TypeScript files with .ts as well as some JavaScript. It's actually empty. I don't know, Justin, good question. I've never used git keep before. We'll have to look into it. Not sure. So much like the Express generator, we just install the tool, we run the build command, and it builds an app we can launch. And it's up and running. So what I think we'll do, it's 5 to 1. Let's take a 10-minute break. When we come back, we'll explore some of these files a bit more. And then we're going to try this out. We're going to try making our own component and playing around and seeing how this works in an Angular environment. Okay. So let's take a 10-minute break here, and then we'll come back and we'll start playing around with this. We'll be back shortly.